Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, boards, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Deep, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. If you're playing characters Gottwald, Max, Cyber, Twirl, this stream is not meant for you, because it'll be full of spoilers, but I welcome all of the rest of you. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20. For streaming, I use OBS Studio. Welcome to Narino, the horror-filled merfolk vampire lair dungeon that I have been working on this week, since we will undoubtedly make it to some part of this dungeon. Presumably, I don't know how long the entire event is going to happen in Omen's Isle, the Iron Hand Cairn location. We've talked about that a lot, and I still want to definitely have those discussions, but there's really not much like concrete prep I can do other than like panic putting together that ship map or something in case things really end up going that far. But in terms of my constructive prep work, I think we really just need to continue to talk about Narino and mainly the changes I'm making. First of all, a map change is a big deal because I'm actually reorganizing how the rooms are presented to the players. This map, again, is from Seafoot Games. You can find, it's called the Infested Underwater Temple Ruins, some combination of those words. I don't remember the order, which you can find a link in the description of these videos. And I will hopefully remember to put one on the main session as well, because folks always ask, and it's good to get ahead of that those questions. And by rearranging the rooms, we can put the boss properly in the back room and also try to tell a cool little story here, which is that similar to the Storm Maiden at Iron Hand Cairn, the Pirate Lord is already here. And unlike, well, I guess the Storm Maiden also ran into problems with the Cloaker, but then she kind of moved on and made it to the final boss room. In this case, the Sahuagin have infiltrated what they thought was going to be basically an empty place, maybe some like random fish monsters or something, and went through here to try to loot some stuff. And they ran afoul of the current resident, which they did not have intel on, which was a merfolk vampire lady named Mei Ling. And she has been... Well, that's what we're going to talk about, I guess. I'm trying to figure out what situation my pirate Captain Lord is in when the players arrive, in trying to make it as interesting and fun and cool as I can, basically, because it's up to me in terms of how I present this information. We've had different back and forths on should Dirge, and in fact I think it was Refus who even mentioned, patron and fan of the show Refus in Discord, that maybe Dirge actually shows up after the party gets here and thus has his full contingent of forces and can just unload. Because one thing, I was playing around with just having him be dead, or even have him rise up as a vampire spawn when the party first enter. That was my latest idea, I think, was to have his whole crew slaughtered, really go into the horror aspect of it, and then have him kind of rise up as maybe a vampire spawn, kind of tweaking the rules about how vampire spawn are created, and the fact that it takes time and all that, kind of be a little wishy-washy about that. But I do think he has a really fun, interesting stat block. I think it was Demnix who mentioned like General Grievous in terms of the forearms wielding wands, which is pretty fun. It's just a really funny idea for a Sahuagin Baron to be like, what if all four hands held wands and he had just a bullshit DM special rule stat block where he could not only attune to 4 wands, but actually fire off 2 wands every turn, which is pretty cool. So I was thinking, well, gosh, I do kind of want to use that because it's such a memorable, hilarious enemy to use, and instantly that's like magic gear for the party because that's 4 fucking wands. But wands each require an attunement slot, so I don't think it's too terribly game breaking. Wands are very useful, but compared to a lot of like signature gear the party has, you might not want to necessarily give yourself like the ability to cast a certain kind of spell. So yeah, that's where we're at right now with what to do. So my latest idea is to perhaps, I still want to lean into the horror aspect, right? Where the horror, sorry, I don't mean the horror aspect, the horror aspect of the slaughter of the Sahuagin, and really do that environmental storytelling as the party kind of makes their way in and be like, what the hell's going on here? And they may think it's like a Sahuagin lair at first, but then they're dead and there's blood everywhere. They're recently been killed, maybe some medicine checks and everything, and just I had some fun kind of literally painting this area full of like blood and dead bodies and stuff, just to really do the horror aspect. And then we can do the Sahuagin vampire spawn, which shout out to Demnix for delivering so fucking quickly and excellently with an awesome vampire-y Sahuagin stat block that is phenomenal. So huge shout out for that. That's amazing. I realized though I'm kind of copying the Kobold vampire spawn stat block, and it's not very strong, right? Like it's not nearly as strong as a regular vampire spawn, which has like 80 some hit points, I think, as a CR5. The Sahuagin spawn has an average of 39 hit points, and I am going to keep them with the claw and bite maneuver to where they have to choose to, they have to hit with their claw attack, and then they don't deal damage. Instead, they do it like a grapple, which is the same rule as the players. They have to choose to essentially use one of their attacks to grapple somebody, which if they get it done on the first hit, then they can use their bite attack for their second move, which is nastier and can reduce hit points and all that good stuff. So, however, against a level 9 party, a single Sahuagin spawn is probably not all that scary unless you have time in the dungeon to be like, oh, here's a single one, and now here's another situation where you're going to fight multiples. I don't think we're going to get to that situation, though, because I have limited space here in this map, and I'm always torn on dungeon design when it comes to linearity versus exploration. I do like giving the players the space to explore and having lots of choices and options and where they go, but that always butts up against, well, crap, you don't want the players to like activate the final room too quickly necessarily, and then that kind of throws off maybe some of the pacing of the dungeon. I've seen a lot of dungeons over the years do some clever ways and not so clever ways of kind of putting up the classic, like, you know, Zelda boss door. Zelda's probably the best example where you know, there's an open dungeon where Link can explore most of the area, and then there's a very clear like boss room that he can't access until he gets the boss key, which then you have to do some like, other puzzles to do. So it creates, you make sure to create that like finale thing at the end, and I'm not doing that here. And in fact, the party has a lot of ways to get to this final room, but thankfully it's at least a huge room, and all the action is taking place up here, to where Dirge has 120 feet of dark vision, by the way. I looked up as a Sahuagin. I think Gottwald does as well. So only he would really be able to notice. He and Gottwald would basically see each other with the rest of the party. I don't think we'll be able to see that far if they just opened one of these doors down here and you see it is maybe, yeah, you wouldn't even hardly see the first couple dead bodies in here, because what I am looking at, because I want to do it semi-realistically and say, okay, the Sahuagin, they came in via giant shark, as they do, which that'll be the first environmental storytelling clue, is there will be a giant shark roaming around kind of the outer area of this temple, and it will have all, it's not gonna really affect its stat block, I don't think, but it'll have like all these like, I don't know, reins and leashes and things holding off of it, as if it had like I'm not picturing like a whole like battle harness or anything, but I'm trying to figure out how Sahuagin actually use giant sharks to mobilize, because giant sharks are very fast. So I'm literally picturing something like the dune worms, where they have some kind of like hook system. Maybe they hook into like the gills, and they've got all these long, like, just literally like ropes or something very simple. It wouldn't be very tech heavy because you're fucking underwater, that you can hang on to. But that would like, and maybe the party would be able to recognize, because they have fought Sahuagin before, and in fact I believe have even fought giant sharks that were also used as Sahuagin mounts. I'm not sure if mount's the right word. Vehicle, maybe? Mode of transportation. So I wouldn't even have to necessarily make them roll a check for that. I could just say, hey, and you guys recognize you saw, giant sharks with the same kind of harness rigging system when you fought them back in Neverwinter, and that was when they were, Sahuagin were using the giant sharks, to basically arrive at a location some distance away. So that would immediately clue the players into like, okay, so there's probably a bunch of Sahuagin here. I would let them know that there's a large creature swimming around when they arrive. First of all, I was trying to figure out like how deep this is. At one point, y'all, I was Googling like depths of the ocean and trying to figure out like how deep is this area without driving me crazy and what would make sense. I'm probably going to settle on like it's a couple 100 feet deep. It's deep enough to where it's dark down here, I think is the idea, but not deep enough where the party's going to have to go through some kind of decompression or something insane, which I don't think is ever covered in the rules, or maybe it is, and let me know if that's the case, if there's some kind of decompression, or if somehow having water breathing magical abilities gives you the ability to go up and down rapidly without suffering from terrible things. I went down a whole rabbit hole about deep diving things that can happen, all these gas mixtures that divers have to use and everything. Anyway, I will tease the fact there's a large creature swimming around. I'll give the party, a moment to kind of react to that and figure out how they want to do things. In fact, I may want to actually create a separate just blank water map, which I think I've got one somewhere, that I can throw this shark on in case the party, in case we want to interact with the shark that's not so close in these quarters here, because this is kind of a small area and you would have a larger area to fight the shark at. So if the party, I would let the party stealth in the water if they wanted to, and the giant shark has a passive perception of 13. So if they wanted to try to stealth their way in, because I've already given them hope, once they get down close enough, they'll be able to see the shark and see the rigging, and that will be the big clue. Obviously, I would love to fight a shark here, and I would love, what would be particularly exciting, I think, would be if we could do the almost opening moment from Disney's The Little Mermaid, where trying to escape, basically run away from a large angry shark. And in this case, maybe they stealth. Maybe we go through a couple stealth checks. I guess Matt could always cast Pass Without Trace, and I'm kind of fucked, right? Like, Pass Without Trace almost renders you fucking invisible at one point. Although it would be able to smell. Does shark have advantage on, like... see, I feel like it should have one of those, like, weird... what is that, like advantage on perception checks that don't involve sight, maybe? I don't know. It does have blind sight out to 60 feet. I wonder how that affects Pass Without Trace. Maybe that's the way they're flavoring mechanically. Blind sight would still detect. You don't want to negate Pass Without Trace, but it's different. I feel like Pass Without Trace functions differently underwater to an extent, especially with the way, sharks are fucking apex predator hunters here. So I think it'd be fun to, if the party got close, to be like, uh-oh, the shark has spotted you, but you guys are close enough, I could put them on this map, and they could be like, okay, I see the size of this thing, can we just run in, like, any of these areas, which there's two entrances here. There's the main entrance here, which I'm labeling as N3, which is going to be this corridor, or they could actually get into this open... It's just kind of half ruins area, so there's opening some places, which is in N2 over here. N1 I'm just labeling as the outer area where the giant shark encounter basically is. Yeah, is that how they do, like, the smell? Is it blind sight, basically, effectively them using this spell? Yeah, except Wand of Magic Missiles does not use attunement, which I guess is why I always forget that wands require attunement, because I think the Wand of Magic Missiles is the one that we end up using all the time. If it's all underwater, how is there blood stains? Well, they're not really blood stains, but I can't... I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, we're looking at a top-down map. There's blood floating in the water. I guess I could try to find, like, a blood mist token instead. But, yeah, the idea is the bodies are all floating, and there's just blood in the water. And the clue for that is that they were pretty recently killed, right? If there's still, like, blood... just kind of in the water, and it's pretty thick in the water, and this area is, it's not open ocean here where we're kind of inside, so perhaps things are lingering a little bit longer. But yeah, I realize that the blood stains are... I went a little nuts with that, but I think it gets the visual idea across, right? Other than me creating, like, giant blood mist. But if I find, like, a good blood mist thing, I could add that in there as well. So that's the one encounter. Technically an optional encounter, right? I'm okay with them skipping the giant shark if they manage to really cleverly stealth, or just not run, but swim past it very quickly. Of course, the giant shark has a swim speed of 50 feet, so a lot of it might come down to initiative at that point. But if they do want to just rush it and fight it, I may just throw it onto a different ocean map versus this one. I'm not sure. I still might use this map, even though it doesn't have a lot of room out here necessarily. You can't see the bottom of it, but the bottom only extends like another row in fact, I can zoom out and you can see the bottom of it there. No, you can't. Let me try and do that a little better. Zoom. There we go. I have to zoom out quite a bit where you can see. That's where the bottom is. So it's only like one row further down. So it gives them a little bit of room, but like not a whole lot of room to maneuver. But I think it's more than a lot of dungeon maps do. All right, so the room I labeled as N2 is going to be empty. Maybe perhaps was like an eating room. By the way, this whole place doesn't make any sense as a merfolk location because there's like steps and shit everywhere, which doesn't make any sense for merfolk. So I am now including a backstory in case anybody gives a shit to say that this city was once on an island, was once a human city, and that island sunk for whatever reason, decades, centuries ago, whatever, and sunk beneath the ocean. Everybody died, I guess, and then merfolk found the city and they turned it into a city that they then used. So it was not always a merfolk city, which is why it's been kind of repurposed that way. And then since then, one of the merfolk became a vampire through some ways. I guess I'll have to come up with a way in case the party talks to the vampire lady for a long time, which they probably will. Maybe it was a trading vessel or something. She got bit. I don't know what happened there. She journeyed far off in her college days and came home with the vampire bug. And she ended up pretty much killing and forcing everybody to flee the area until it was basically just her left. So the Sahuagin entered through this right opening path. They were pretty smart about not having to open any necessarily doors if they didn't have to. So they entered this right path. Perhaps they spotted the arcane sigils that are here because there's going to be a trap in this corridor. So they went to the rightmost door to the courtyard. And then they went along this outer courtyard area and entered through this one opening on the northeastern side of the main room. That was their path they took, which is why you can follow their path given all the bodies, because those were creatures that were basically killed or heavily wounded by the vampire and then slowly tried to retreat back the way they came, and hence why they were killed whenever some of the Sahuagin became Sahuagin spawn. I'm kind of using the concept of a zombie story more than a vampire story at this point, I realize, in terms of how quickly the spawn are created and how quickly they turn on other people. But I think that's just cool and adds to kind of the horror element. So some of the Sahuagin were killed and they were raised pretty quickly as a Sahuagin spawn. Maybe the vampire bug behaves differently amongst mer creatures. I don't know. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I think I'm going to add 2, maybe more Sahuagin spawn here in this area, which I'm labeling as N5, the courtyard area. So that'll be their first clue. They're like, oh shit, okay, there's more dead Sahuagin, and now there's fucking like Sahuagin vampires in here. What is going on? And they can obviously attack the party. I'm putting them on the GM layer. I assume they can be stealthy. Maybe the party will hear some creepy sounds though. Don't know if... I wonder if a regular vampire spawn or if the kobold spawn has a stealth score. Yes, the kobold spawn has a stealth of +6. So maybe we can add that to our Sahuagin. They've got a +3, so... I like 6 because that maybe they have a proficiency bonus of 3 as well. So let's give them a 6 for stealth. Stealth. Can we just say 6 or we have to say +6? There we go. So that can roll for stealth. I can also treat that as a DC 16. I always like using that rule. I don't know if that's actually just a rule I use or if that's something in the handbook, but kind of just take the average of like 10 plus whatever their bonus is to what they're doing. So stealth is usually the thing I'm having to look at. Perception, that's basically what perception is, by the way, passive perception. So it's almost like a passive stealth where like the creatures are just kind of hiding in general where I don't want to show them. Or maybe they're active because they can, detect the party coming, and so they kind of pull back and then use their stealth score. But it'd be like a DC 16 essentially to notice them. And then they've got a perception of 15, I guess, if they notice the party. If the party were stealthing. If not, then they would probably notice instantly. I think this is the spawn stat block I'm going with, though, where I basically used elements of the kobold vampire spawn in terms of its raw stats, and then I kind of applied that to The Sahuagin, I will probably give them more hit points, though, than 39. Probably at least an average of 10 more hit points, if I'm being honest. Which is what? If I want to give them, be like 8d6 plus 18. What does that average out to? Yeah, the sunken Coca-Cola factory. The lost city of Atlanta. Speeds up the process. We have the airport. The ocean truly is a dumping ground for bipedal cities, indeed. If there's blood in the water, will it cause the shark to be confused and head for the blood? Yeah, maybe. That's probably why I would flavor the shark as being very agitated out here. Maybe it can sense the blood in the water, and so it's automatic. That's why it's like linger. I mean, it's a trained shark from the Sahuagin. It's like a war horse, essentially. The shark version of the war horse. A war shark. And it would be kind of parked outside, but still like swimming around. But maybe it's more agitated than usual, so it's like really sensing around, and because of the blood nearby. So if the party wants to follow, they can. I am leaving a door open, so if they literally want to see the path, like that would be, again, just kind of makes sense. Nobody's closing a door. I guess they could have maybe closed a door behind them, but if they're dead, either they bled out or they were formerly killed by one of the Sahuagin spawn, in which case I'm not sure the spawn would bother closing a door. So I think I might leave it open and just kind of add to the weirdness of the fact there's like door open and shit. Obviously, they can go in this door to lead to N6, which is the main temple. N3, I'm including a trap, which I don't think in the original Narino, there is a weird trap that's the symbol spell, which I had to look up last time because I'd never fucking heard of this spell. Where you can, it's kind of an upgraded Glyph of Warding, but you can put all these other effects on there, like debuffs and stuff. And like the one that affects them is the Hopelessness effect, which is like, you can't cast spells or something weird. But if you're not in combat, a lot of it doesn't really matter. I guess the idea was you could trigger combat. I think it's supposed to be on this door up here that actually leads from the corridor to the temple. So I'm going to change all that and instead say, all right, maybe the merfolk actually put this trap down to help kind of guard their area. Why it would be here. I wonder if I should just eliminate these doors on the side. That would make things a little easier for me. Because, like, why would they trap this corridor but not bother trapping these? I can lock the doors. Why don't we just lock the doors? I mean, that might help a little bit. Maybe they're blocked by coral or something, in which case they're no longer really doors at all. Because I was just talking about how I enjoy giving the players some freedom of movement, but they do have some. But giving them access to this temple without having to do a damn near anything else does kind of stick in my craw a little bit. Because they could basically skip the giant shark, make it to room N2, see the body, say, nope, we're not going that way, and then go up this door from N2 into the temple of N6, and then just trigger the boss fights. They haven't done a damn thing. So that would be a bummer. So maybe I should eliminate these side doors on the side, and then the only way into the main temple is either through the corridor in N3 or going around the two sides where you would at least trigger some other things, either the Sahuagin vampire spawn fight in N5, or you could interact with the crypts in N4, which I am keeping that from the original Narino. The trap, by the way, I looked up the Sahuagin Wave Shaper Whirlpool effect from the final enemy, which is this one, because I thought, well, what kind of trap would... You're kind of limited on traps you can use purely underwater that the merfolk, spellcasters might have designed. So I think, well, maybe just a vortex that just fucking batters you around, and that the tease would be when they first enter that room, like it would be destroyed. Like it looks like a tornado went off or something, because maybe somebody triggered it back at some point, and things are just crazy in there. So this middle area would trigger the trap. There's going to be a hidden arcane sigil on there. And it will be a strength saving throw for anybody within like 10 feet of the vortex, which the vortex would be this 10-foot square in the middle. Have to make a strength save or be sucked into the vortex, taking bludgeoning damage basically every turn. This would be kind of a multi-complex trap where I could probably roll initiative, or at least I would execute the trap first And if I don't roll an initiative, I could then say, I may have to roll an initiative actually just to keep it organized, because the idea you would be able to take make the save again at the end of the turn if you haven't escaped from the vortex. So you would have to, but you'd only have like a turn's worth of actions to be able to get away from it. And I increased everything from the Sahuagin Wave Shaper actually up to the damage from 2d8 to 3d8 and up to the strength save, I think from a 14 to a 16. And those guys already a CR5, but I don't know, it just feels like for a single trap, I should make that a little bit more exciting. So that'll be something the party will have to deal with in the middle. And then the crypts is the thing that I'm probably keeping the most similar to the original Narino, which is there's just a bunch of crypts with some treasure inside, and then one of them holds a wraith. I think it's in this one, is it not? Maybe it's a different one that has the wraith inside. Swear to God, one of these had a wraith. Let's see. Skeleton with a shield of missile catching and a +1 spear. Crystal Ball of Mind Reading. There we go. It's the last sentence on this one. Taking either of the items causes a wraith with a 60-foot swim speed to attack the thief. There's a little bit too much treasure in here, however, as I side-eyed the designer, who included a shield of missile catching, a +1 spear, a crystal ball of mind reading, which is a legendary item, a staff of withering, and a circlet of blasting. Those are 4 magic items, all 4 of which require attunement. No, sorry, 5 magic items, because the +1 spear. The spear does not require attunement. 5 magic items, 4 of which require attunement in one area, only guarded by a single wraith. None of those, by the way, being the actual main boss's coffin, who I guess doesn't have any treasure in her coffin area. So the only one I'm using still is the Circlet of Blasting. We're reflavoring that as basically a circlet of, like, I don't know, cold blasting. Right, and 4-1, I know. So I'm definitely not doing nearly as much treasure in here. And I'm somebody who likes giving treasure, right? I'm very guilty of that. I enjoy giving my party lots of treasure and having fun with that, and I know they enjoy it, but that's crazy. I finally met somebody who gives out more treasure than I do, I guess. So I'm basically only keeping the Circle of Blasting, which I don't think that one does. No, that one doesn't require attunement, my bad. Which I think is a good one to give to parties. I think they're more interested in items that are like that, where they're that good, but they don't require attunement, so you have to be like the tough choices. Although there should be some good ones. I do plan on putting a underwater crossbow that Mac can use, probably in one of these crypts as well. In fact, that's a different area of the treasure that includes 2 different crossbows, a +1 light crossbow and a hand crossbow of warning. I'm going to use, I like the idea of a harpoon gun, or basically some ranged, the idea being give Mac a ranged weapon that he can use underwater. Even though he's perfectly very capable with his Scimitar of Speed, and I've actually really enjoyed how he changes it up quite a bit with his tactics and weapons and stuff. But I think that would be the one need at this point that the party really has, is for Mac to have some kind of underwater ranged weapon that's pretty consistent. So I was going to give him a crossbow with some kind of cool, like, underwater features or things he can use, and it would make sense that you would find it in a, like, merfolk dungeon, you know, in with a buried noble or something. It's so I'll create like a bespoke, powerful crossbow gun that he will want. And I like the idea of a harpoon gun. I need to figure out the rules of that. Merfolk has a rule for that. Although, as Genocider pointed out, like, do you really want to give Mac another ability, or give Raymond another ability that he can do the get over here and do something that brings people closer to him? But he also really likes those abilities and has fun with them. So yeah, I kind of do want to give him that. So I will create that in this treasure pile, but they will have to fight for it. There's going to be a wraith here that will spawn probably when they take that crossbow. I like the idea of them like looting some of the stuff, but like when they open up one of them, that's what triggers the wraith with a bunch of specters, because that just seems pretty obvious. So a nice little undead fight right here for some treasure. So that's all down here, which the party should have full visibility of all these things once they figure out their dark vision needs, so they can explore this area. Oh yeah, I'm on the GM layer, that's why. So that trap is just for me and you to see, but not for the party. So I am thinking about getting rid of maybe these 2 doors on either side, and we will keep... In fact, I can even lock this door and make it so it's more challenging to get in unless you go in through the sides. So maybe we'll create some debris I'll find some like coral map art or something. Coral. Fucking Demonex Walking Dead meme. Find some coral map. I don't know, growth or something. This map's got plenty of it, and then maybe block these two side doors, and then we'll keep this one as kind of a locked door the party has to get in, which could, let them get in through there. They don't have a rogue or anything, but they can easily go through one of these sideways, and that way I can force them into there. The left path, I don't really have anything there. The one thing Narino mentioned that there's like kind of a library, I think, at one point. Although an underwater library means it's a bunch of thousands of nooks cut into the walls, each of which hold a thin sheet of gray stone, which I guess is how they would do their library. I don't know if I want to depict that here and just say that the library like collapsed and fell away, or why there'd be like an outdoor area. I'm kind of hamstrung by the way the map is depicted right here as being like yet another just outdoor courtyard area. So I don't know. But it's going to probably be an empty room because I think there's enough going on here. And then the main thing that everything is going to happen is in this main temple area where Dirge and the crew have made it, and they are still like basically fighting. Well, this is what we can talk about. So I think my latest idea is to try to create some like time dilation, as Chris would say, with the party arriving just maybe within hours of the pirate captain who made it here, made it all the way in here, and then was attacked by the vampire and her cronies, which I guess are just the gargoyles. I'm not quite sure if I want to. Maybe she's got like piranhas, because vampires can summon their children of the night ability, and hers would be and piranha. Like, who is the vampire of the fish world? I think the piranha is probably the one. So swarms of, or sorry, quippers, I guess they're called in Forgotten Realms, but they're piranha. Maybe he's literally still alive and has been attacked. In fact, we can even do a fun thing where maybe he's using like one of his hands to like staunch like some blood or something, or he's got some blood down his face, and he's like freaked out right now. He's like spinning around. He's got full adrenaline pumping. And maybe when the party is exploring the dungeon down here, they even hear like some far off like screams and stuff, which could really like, set the tone again for that horror theme dungeon that I'm going for. And the thing is that he'll have a lot less of his crew, obviously, because most of them have been slaughtered. So I think we'll have to make him more powerful. But perhaps she's like stepped back now after having done a lot of this work, and maybe I don't know if I want to create any vampire spawn, or Sahuagin vampire spawn in this room necessarily. Perhaps he's been having to kill. Maybe even he killed a vampire spawn. Maybe I can grab one of them and give them an X on it, so that that's kind of what they've been dealing with. So I'll like create one and put it here. I did give them vision, so I could kind of see what the party's going to see. I think it's a 60-foot dark vision right there, but we can turn that off. So maybe it's got a X token, so it's been like killing these guys. Maybe right there or something. So the party would come across, and this guy would be like trigger happy, ready to go and start blasting as soon as he saw the party. And maybe the party would be like, whoa, wait, what's going on? Maybe and maybe there's an RP opportunity there. Except I would probably roleplay Dirge as being like so far gone that he is almost like permanently frightened condition, although the source of his fear is not in sight, but he's like freaked out enough where he's just slaughtering everybody, and probably just pictures the party maybe as being more agents of the vampire, and the party will still be kind of confused about what's going on because they just know that the Sahuagin's here. They don't really know, and maybe they've seen the vampires or something. Could try to create find some creepy ambient music. There's Kevin MacLeod, man. He's got all the fucking good music. Reskin Sturges as Lamprey. Ooh, Sturges, yeah. That's true. Good, like, vampire spawn thing. I mean, Piranha's a pretty classic, though, right? Like, they're frenzy eating guys. I don't know. I think it worked pretty well. We do have the gargoyles still. which is part of her entourage here. Talk about her gargoyles. If combat breaks out with my Ling in this chamber, the 4 gargoyles with a swim speed of 60 feet swoop down from the gallery above and assist their mistress. So she's got 4 gargoyles for whatever reason, which is a pretty good minion stat block. So that effect would allow us to use Dirge still in his non-undead, non-vampire, non-dead state, and be able to have a boss fight with the party, with the caveat that the party is pretty sure, like, even he's afraid of something else going on here. And maybe we even spawn vampire spawn during that fight. That could be pretty fucked up, too. Oh, Eric, you fucking genius. Like, oh no, this is how they're like literally getting created here. So we could put some of these guys like on the GM layer, and obviously they would also be hostile to Dirge. So I'd have to be careful about, you know, how many I want to use here, but that could make things really interesting and really chaotic. I do think we need to give Dirge more hit points, even though I just said he's wounded, but like his base stat block only has 76 hit points, and I don't think that's enough for a boss. At least not enough for this level 9 crew, who's capable of dealing 40 or 50 damage if they focus all their damage pretty quickly. How much? We gave the Storm Maiden 150 hit points. I forgot what she was supposed to have normally. I think that was like her max amount. She has an average of 112, so she did have a lot more than Dirge in general. I guess Dirge is like a spellcaster stat block. I guess I could see how much he's maximum supposed to have. He's a modified Sahuagin Baron, presumably. Where is that stat block? Okay, they didn't give him any more hit points than the average Sahuagin Baron. That's not fair. Let's go to the Mathalator and see how many hit points a Sahuagin Baron could possibly ever have. 9D, thank you. 9D times plus 27 is only 117. Maximum possible hit points. It's not a lot. He's a named boss version with wands. I feel like he should have a little bit more. We're going to give him 130 hit points. Don't make me regret it, Dirge. Use them well. Boom, done. I also need to make sure his stat block is set up correctly, because I don't think... Looking with his dapper robes. Don't think his wands are necessarily set up in here. Fear, Fireball, and Hold Person are 3 of the wands. The other one is the Wand of Wonder. Oh, is that the one that's a giant fucking table? Who loves giant tables of random effects? Roll a D100 and consult the following table to discover what happens. God, that could be very scary for the DM to use. I could stun my own boss. Fuck. Which, knowing my rolls, that would happen. Okay, summoning an elephant underwater would be darkly hilarious. Cast Lightning Bolt. A cloud of 600 oversized butterflies would also presumably all die immediately. And just 600 oversized butterfly bodies. Grass grows. Object of the DM's choice disappears in the ethereal plane. Shrink yourself. You cast fire. One of them is just you cast Fireball, which is like his wand of fireballs. Cast invisibility. Stream of gems shoots out. Target skin turns bright blue. Wonderful. God, my wife is gonna love this fucking wand. I can already tell. She is gonna be using this wand every damn time. She is an agent of chaos. Yeah, I don't even know how effective. How effective is Fireball underwater? Because doesn't everybody get like fire resistance? So I don't think it kind of neuters the fireball. I kind of hate random stuff like this. I think as a DM, I kind of hate it, but I know some of my players absolutely love it, and I love when my players love things. So I think it kind of balances it out. But it can certainly create a headache. It does make things very memorable, though, I will say. Creatures and objects that are fully immersed in water have resistance to fire damage. Yeah. So fireball is normally a great thing to do, but maybe not the best. And Dirge would know that underwater. I wonder if I should just straight up replace the Wand of Fireballs then. He wouldn't necessarily take that into an underwater excursion, right? Is there a better wand already built in we can use? Or we could just custom replace it with a wand of frozen balls. The wand of blue balls. The wand of winter. The wand of smiles. Wand of web is okay, although we already have the wand of binding. Because he's got 2 good debuffs. Yeah, magic missiles would be good. I feel like that's another one. That one and the circle of blasting. We're like checking all the boxes here, right? In terms of giving the party the magic item, and the bag of holding is like the other one we need to go. Giving the party the items that like every party gets at some point during a campaign, which Wand of Magic Missiles is one of them. Very, very clutch, easy one to give out. Wand of Magic Detection. Actually pretty useful, but not in combat, and kind of takes away from the cool factor of him wielding 4 wands in combat. There is a Wand of Lightning Bolts. There is a Wand of Lightning Bolts. Use an action to spend 1 charge to cast the Lightning Bolt spell. For 1 charge, you cast the 3rd level version. Increase the spell level by 1 for each initial charge you expend. Yeah. It's nasty, but I think that would be equivalent to Fireball, right? In terms of rare. I think Lightning Bolt is the same spell slot, 3rd level version. And it works underwater. So yeah, I think we need to just replace his Wand of Fireballs with a Wand of Lightning Bolts. Gosh. Yeah, I'm going to give the party 4 fucking wands. Can I guess I need to actually give you the spell Lightning Bolt. That's going to be the equivalent. Right, here's a bunch of free spell slots. Yeah. And not only that, well, I guess they do say they have to be attuned by a spellcaster, don't they? So yeah, I feel like every spellcaster should have something that does that, like, you know, Pearl of Power or wands or something. That's very, I'm okay with that. Or staff that does all that. Let's see, spells, Lightning Bolt. Let's give that to you, and let's change. I'm kind of scared to use the Wand of Wonder, though. Maybe he shouldn't use it. Well, maybe he should use it in like the 3rd round, right? Not like the 1st round. Because I don't want to fucking like stun myself. Or grow leaves or something like right off the bat. What are the odds? Most of them I think are good for you. You have it's a 1 to 100. You have a chance to instantly petrify the target. Holy shit. Some of them are silly. I feel like more than half of them, though, you're casting like effective spells. Slow, Fairy Fire, Gust of Wind, Stinking Cloud, Lightning Bolt, Darkness, Enlarge, Reduce, either on yourself or on the target. And weirdly, both of them can be kind of good for different people, depending on what your situation is. Fireball, we talked about how it's not actually too effective underwater. Invisibility. Heavy Rain. Stunning yourself is really bad. Start of your next turn. That is this is the devastating one. If you do this to your own boss, you are stunned until the start of your next turn. Holy shit! Like stun is like that's bad. That's real bad. So maybe he'll use it, but not use it right off the bat. Don't really want to plug all this into Roll20, but I think if the party ends up using the Wand of Wonder, I will definitely have to. I could pick, if I was rolling at a table secretly, I would probably pick one, but we do everything out in the public with our game, so it would not be becoming of me to do that. Stream of Gems does. Each gem deals 1 bludgeoning damage. The total damage of all gems, 1d4 times 10 gems, each worth 1 GP. Shoot from the wand's tip in a line 30 foot long and 5. That's actually really clever. Each gem deals damage and divided equally among all creatures in the line. Yeah, that's a clever idea. I wish there were more ones actually like that. I get that half of them are like just casting spells. But like, yeah, the cloud of butterflies that obscures, summoning a random animal, which is another random chance. You have a 50% chance to summon a rat. And it isn't under your control and acts as it normally would. Oh no, it's a drowned rat. Yeah, that's a fascinating table. I don't think I've ever seen this item before. And I'm sure a lot of DMs shy away from it. I guess, I don't know. If I have time, I'll plug this in here because then I can use it and properly cast it out in the open. But probably not until like the 3rd round, and obviously as like his second action, because he can trigger 2 wand effects. I guess simultaneously, it says. Fear is really good, but it is a 30-foot cone, and this is a giant room. So Fear is really effective if obviously anybody gets up pretty close to him, but 30-foot makes it pretty limiting with how far he can do it. Lightning Bolt's obviously a great one for distance, and then Hold Person has a 60-foot range on that one, so you can paralyze somebody and then fire a Lightning Bolt would probably be the best 1-2 combo. And then if anybody gets near him, he can add Fear into that mix. JP asks, where did you get the nice animated indicator for initiative tracker? I think the best thing I can tell you is if you go to our Discord and shit, which one is it in? You might be in our Rime of the Frostmaiden, or maybe it's in the, we have a virtual tabletop section in our Discord server where I think I've pinned that information because people have been asking about that. And it's a, I think it's a custom API macro thing, I believe. Maybe they've created one that's official now that you can select that does that, but yeah, it's real sexy. I think we started using it with our Rime campaign. It also really allows us to roll monster initiative individually, which has been something we've really enjoyed and creates more dynamic combat, and it's something I would not really be able to do playing at the table because it just kind of tracks which individual, you could have like 4 different orcs, for example, but if you roll them separate initiatives for each one of those orcs, then the initiative tracker will help you keep track of which actual token is moving at that time, and it does make it a lot more interesting to allow them to activate throughout combat versus having all of them go at once, although I definitely see why you'd want that shorthand for sure. So that's the idea with Narino. I know there's been questions about the vampire, when to introduce her and all that. I'm not sure. I would like the party to face this guy. In fact, we can go ahead and say he is a bit injured. Maybe he's got 115 hit points left. He's taken a little bit of damage. But mainly it's his minions that have been falling. She obviously came and attacked everybody. She's using pretty smart tactics with taking out all of his forces to where if you notice there's hardly any left. I've got like maybe 1 Sahuagin, 1 priestess, and then him remaining out of his entire crew, which included of all these dead bodies that you're seeing, plus all of the Sahuagin spawn hidden on the GM layer are sitting there as well. I would definitely role play her. It says in Narino that she's a gracious host. I don't know if I would be that gracious. If I'm making her a merfolk vampire, I would presume, I don't know the cultural distinctions of underwater species in the Forgotten Realms, but I would presume everybody fucking hates the Sahuagin. Is that fair to say? Like, they're shark folk. They are all evil, aligned. They can talk to sharks. They like hunt other people. Like, yes, they're obviously sentient and they have some culture, but I don't know. They don't seem like they're well liked or even like in this campaign, for example, we did a lot of fun stuff with lizard folk and made them more interesting and not just enemies, but like they had their cultures and everything. We worked through all that. But the Sahuagin, I don't know. I feel like they're pretty nasty across the board. So, in other words, I feel like the vampire lady, first of all, she doesn't want to see anybody coming into her lair and just snooping around and stuff. But second of all, I think even though she might wanted to speak to newcomers, I think she would be like, oh no, fuck these Sahuagin guys. Like, no, they are not going to be in here. So she would just start killing them like horror movie style, which I'm on board with. So I'm trying to justify to myself basically why she would not necessarily react that way to the party when they arrive, although the party would still have to deal with obviously the Sahuagin and then any Sahuagin vampire spawn that appear, although I think they're under the control of the vampire, but maybe when they're first created. I'm really starting to create my own rules for this. Under the vampire's control. Maybe the control is just to, kill everybody. And then at some point, once Dirge falls, she can arrive. And perhaps we can do a really fun thing where like all the rest of the bodies start turning into vampire spawn. And the party's like, fuck. And then they stop their attack. And then she comes down. And then she's like, all right, you came in here and attacked the Sahuagin, so I'm willing to like hear you out and see what your deal is before I rip your throats out. Like, so I'm not going to paint her as necessarily very nice or accommodating. Very, very powerful, willing to throw her weight around, kind of like a player character. But she is willing to converse with the party and figure out what their whole deal is. However, if the party loots the treasures in the crypts, I think she would probably know that and probably not be very cool with that. So that would not be in their favor. She would be like, what? That's, you've stolen things from my home. How am I supposed to react to that? And I'll give the party like a chance. Maybe they want to pay her, treasure, other things, or do whatever else. And yes, I could try to do a tricky thing where during the conversation, I can have her use her charm ability, which I think could be a lot of fun. The target can see the vampire. The target must succeed on a DC 17 Wisdom saving throw or be charmed by the vampire. The charmed target regards the vampire as a trusted friend to be heeded and protected. Although the target isn't under the vampire's control, it takes the vampire's requests or actions in the most favorable way it can and is a willing target for the vampire's bite attack, which could be another cool dark thing is she's like, all right, well, let me feed off each of you or something, which could be pretty spiffy. I don't think it would matter too much because the bite attack would be cured on the long rest. And if this is the last thing in the dungeon, then mechanically I don't think it matters too much, but that could be something we're looking at as well. So I'm not necessarily willing to, I definitely want to force, I think, the fight with Dirge. And I'm painting that the fact that he's just freaked out and killing everybody, and he would recognize the party as well, because they were all given intel, and some of the party were even sent to hunt some of the pirate lords were sent to hunt the party specifically, like Scummer and Desecratus. So he would know and he would freak out about that, but he's also in like fucking just spinning around with his wands out, like ready to attack anybody who gets near because he's scared of the vampire lady and all. And I'm not even sure he even knows what's going on, maybe, depending on how stealthy I want her to be. I could also even reveal the fact that like maybe one of the gargoyles has been destroyed too. Like they've been attacking. Perhaps that makes sense. I don't know. Or maybe she's been saving them if she actually has to be attacked directly, because she really has been like flitting around and just, grabbing people and biting them and taking them out that way. And she knows that's the most effective way because she can perhaps turn the Sahuagin crew. She can kill them quickly, disappear, and then eventually they'll rise up as Sahuaga spawn Sawag Pyres really doesn't work that well, does it? Vagus Swan. Well, that sounds like a medical issue. Let's not go into that. Anyway, and that way that bolsters her forces, which she's just using the enemy forces against the enemy. So, but I do plan on introducing her and there being a role-playing scene and it getting tense if the party has looted those crypts from N4. I don't think I want to have any actual treasure in her coffin, though, if they do defeat her, which is a possibility. She's a straight-up vampire with, what is it, CR 13. Average of like 144 hit points, 18 armor class. Apparently she's wearing bracers of defense, I'm just now seeing. It's interesting. Know where that's mentioned in her information somewhere under mailing. Huh. Feeds on the blood of merfolk and seals. Sometimes she raises from underwater layer to sample Tarnian blood and make mischief. Yeah, see, it's not too much of a gracious host. Also turn into a quipper instead of a bat, I guess. The Knoll and Rhyme. Well, she's not... yes, in terms of her battle tactics, yes, but the Knoll was really like chaotic evil, just a ferocious, nasty villain, and she is not that necessarily. She is much more probably lawful evil, if anything, and she's willing to have a conversation and hear the party out and see what their deal is, but still expects to be, you know, she will throw her prowess around. She's the vampire. This is her home, and what's interesting is this party does not exactly have very strong convictions in terms of we need to, you know, not allow this vampire to exist down here. They're almost the opposite, where they're like, oh yeah, sure, as long as you're, you know, enemy of my friend or whatever. Like they kind of make friends and bargains with all these different villainous factions around. So I'm kind of expecting the party to ally themselves with this vampire lady, but I will also make this the most challenging NPC to ally with. A lot of the previous ones were very inclined to ally with the party, either because the party was, you know, came in guns blazing and they kind of had to, like with Sambale, or they were already predisposed to ally with the party, like with the Black Dragon, for example. Captain Callus was very predisposed to ally with them as well. She is not necessarily that way. She is only if they really cater to her, they do her whims, you know, they don't steal the treasures, all that kind of stuff, then she would basically allow them to leave alive, essentially. But it would be a little more challenging for the party to get away with it. So those are my plans for Nerino. I think I've got it all worked up, but again, I'll need to close. I think I'm going to close these side doors, and then we still need to craft the actual ranged weapon to put in the crypts for Mac to discover. But otherwise, I think we've made a lot of good progress on Nerino. We're still going to not even jump into Nerino tomorrow, right? We've got to do the whole deal with the Storm Maiden at Ironhand Cairn. Who knows how long that's going to be or what's going to be involved there. I have no idea. I don't think Raymond has any idea. We'll just have to figure that out, and then the party can travel here. I think I'm going to go ahead and let them long rest on their ship because they've been through a lot before they enter this dungeon. And then we'll see how far we get in this dungeon as well. It just depends on how much combat or things we do. But I assume this area will take us 2 sessions. It just depends on how long the Ironhand Cairn thing lasts. Because presumably this encounter with Dirge and the Vampire Lady could definitely be a full encounter as well. And then after that, we can start working on our big ship battle with Desecratus as the party can start just making their way towards the Elanther Isles, I think. And on Dirge, finally, if they don't already get it from the Storm Maiden's body, they will find a compass on his body, like that, you know, special magic compass idea I had, where they will be able to, once they enter the Elanther Isles, pinpoint the location of Tentrix's lair. So then we can prep the whole Driftwood Dock, see King Tentrix's lair area as well after that. Still so much left to go in this campaign, but that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Deep. As always, if you enjoy the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brandon, Zenicider, Eclectic, Roleplay, Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Tyler, Nathan, Kemp, Chrisley, Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, The Reldrin, Stephanie, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Lumpy Spuds, Sharni, Warden, Harold, Eudaimonia, LLC, Jamie, Reese, Tom, and Lucius. Gold patrons, RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Lizard Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Pazigatorta, Scott, Rufus, Carolyn, Jerry, Glenn, Marcus, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow.